What?
You ever open your phone just to check something, and suddenly, it's 30 minutes later? You've scrolled through rage, politics, tragedy, someone's vacation, and you feel worse. Not just distracted, worse. Anxious, angry, hollow. And yet, you do it again tomorrow, and the day after. And it just never stops. We all keep scrolling. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. It's not an accident. It is designed. Social media doesn't just show you what's popular. It doesn't show what you're interested in to learn. And it surely does not want to show you what makes you happy. It shows you what pisses you off. You feel this too, right? What gets under your skin? What keeps you hooked? Because calm people scroll less. But angry people, they keep coming back. And when they unload their emotions through comments, the algorithm has done its job. The algorithm isn't here to help you think. It's here to keep you engaged. And the fastest way to do that is to keep you emotionally triggered. Fear, envy, outrage. These aren't just emotions. They're business models, preying on helpless people. Look, the platforms you use every day, they don't care if you're informed. They care if you're engaged. And you know what keeps people engaged better than anything else? Rage. Anger travels faster than facts. Fear spreads wider than nuance. And hate, it goes viral. That's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. The algorithm is designed to reward what makes you react, not what makes you think. And the platforms? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. They didn't all plan this out like villains. It's worse than that. They just told the algorithm, show people more of whatever keeps them here. That's it. Whatever keeps you scrolling, pausing, clicking, commenting. Doesn't matter if you love it or hate it. If you're looking at it, it wins. And what do people spend the most time looking at? The stuff that pisses them off. Why? Because we argue with it. We quote it. We reply to it. We fight it. And from the algorithm's point of view, that's gold. Engagement is engagement. You're doing a lot of it, so it feeds you more. More posts like that. More creators like that. More comments just like the ones that triggered you last time. It doesn't care how you feel. It only cares that you feel something. And the next thing you know, your feed becomes a minefield of stuff that makes you miserable. Content that makes you think, who are these people? How are they this stupid? But they're not there by accident. You engaged. So now, they're everywhere. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You can shift it. Stop commenting on posts that make you angry. Stop watching what you claim to hate. And start interacting with the things and people that actually nourish you. The algorithm isn't moral. It's responsive. If outrage is what you feed it, outrage is what it will grow. But if curiosity, calm, and real connection is what you reward, it'll pivot. Not because it cares, but because it's watching you. Always. And it learns fast. Most people think they're in control. I follow who I want. I choose what I engage with. But that's the illusion. You don't choose what you see. The algorithm does. It decides which posts rise. which comments are shown first, which headlines flood your feed. You're not scrolling through reality. You're scrolling through a simulation of what keeps you scrolling. That's it. The algorithm knows when you pause. It knows which facial expressions keep your eyes on the screen. It knows when you flinch, and it adjusts accordingly. You're not the user. You're the test subject. Every click you make, every argument you get sucked into, every little microsecond of attention becomes data. And that data is used to shape the next thing you see. Not to inform you, not to help you, but to keep you on the hook. You think you're finding content, but really, the content is finding you, based on who you've become, or more accurately, who the algorithm has been training you to be. The algorithm doesn't just know what to show you, it knows how often to show it. Over and over and over again. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because repetition isn't just annoying, it's rewiring. The more you see something, the more normal it starts to feel. The more you hear a certain opinion, the more familiar, even reasonable, it starts to sound. That's not an accident. That's psychology. Your brain is built to conserve energy. It takes shortcuts. And one of the biggest shortcuts it uses, familiar equals safe. Seen it before? Must be true. Everyone else is sharing it. Must be valid. That's how propaganda works. And in this case, the propaganda isn't even coming from a person. It's coming from a machine that's been optimized to exploit your patterns. Not for some political agenda, but for profit. That's why you start to think the world is angrier than it is. That everyone is shallow, or evil, or hopeless. Not because that's what's real, but because that's what you've been shown again and again, until your brain starts calling it truth. That's how you go from aware to trapped. Not by force, just by frequency. Here's the part no one wants to admit. Sometimes, being angry feels good. It gives you energy. It makes you feel like you're standing for something. Like you're awake. Like you're doing something that matters. That's the trap. Because when the world feels chaotic, when you feel small, or powerless, or ignored, outrage gives you something to hold on to, something to blame, something to shout about. It gives you identity. You don't just disagree with people, now you fight them. You don't just see a post, now you're in a war. And that war feels like purpose, but it's not. It's emotional junk food. Feels good in the moment. Wrecks you in the long run. Because while you're fighting strangers in the comments, while you're spinning your energy in a rage loop, your real goals, your actual thoughts, they've been drowned out. You're not thinking anymore. You're reacting. And when your identity is built on reaction, you become easy to control. The algorithm didn't steal your purpose. It just sold you one that's easier to monetize. You can delete the apps, take a break, go off grid for a while. And yeah, that might help. For a little bit. But the truth is, walking away doesn't fix the root of the problem. Because the algorithm isn't just on your phone. It's in your head now. In your instincts, your reflexes, your attention span. And unless you start noticing that, really noticing it, it will keep pulling you back. Not through addiction, but through habit, through comfort, through curiosity, through that tiny voice that says, "Let me just check for a second." But you're not just checking. You're entering a space that was designed to pull your emotional strings. And the only way out isn't deleting it. It's seeing it. Seeing how you respond. Seeing what you chase. Seeing what makes you angry and asking why. That's the real detox. Not removing the app, removing the obedience. You don't have to go offline to be free. You just have to stop being predictable. Because the moment you stop reacting automatically, the system can't use you the same way. That's when you go from product to player. The algorithm isn't evil. It's not some villain in the shadows. It's a reflection of us, of what we watch, of what we engage with, of what we reward. And if we don't learn to pay attention, it will keep shaping us into versions of ourselves we never chose. Angrier, louder, emptier. But it doesn't have to end like that. You don't need to unplug. You don't need to vanish. You just need to wake up, to pay attention to what you pay attention to stop feeding your mind to systems that profit from your outrage, and to start using the algorithm as a tool instead of being used by it. That's the real resistance, not deleting everything, but choosing what you see, choosing who you are inside the machine. You open the app because you want to feel connected. You want to see something real, something human. But the more you scroll, the more isolated you feel. You see people smiling, laughing, winning, or fighting. Always so sure of themselves, so loud, so confident. And you wonder, why don't I feel like that? What am I doing wrong? But here's the part you forget. You're not seeing people. You're seeing versions of people filtered, edited, and selected by a machine that profits from your comparison. The algorithm doesn't show you the truth. It shows you the moments most likely to make you react. And in that process, it rewrites your perception of what's normal, of what's enough, of who you're supposed to be. And when you don't measure up, you don't just feel behind. You feel alone. But you're not. You're just caught in the loop, searching for connection in a system built on performance. It gives you the illusion of closeness while slowly pulling you further and further away from anything real. You used to be allowed to not know. You used to be allowed to say, "It's complicated," but not anymore. Now you have to pick a side. Everything is framed as yes or no, good or evil, with us or against us. And if you hesitate, that hesitation becomes guilt. The algorithm doesn't want you to think. It wants you to declare, immediately, publicly, loudly. Why? Because thoughtful people scroll slower. But outraged people, they click, they comment, they fight, they engage. Nuance doesn't perform well. Rage does. Absolutes do. And over time, the world inside your feed becomes sharper, crueler, and more binary. Even if you're not like that. Even if you still believe in listening, in questioning, in thinking things through, you'll feel pressure to be louder, to simplify your beliefs into punchlines, to flatten your thoughts into something more shareable. And slowly, the part of you that used to wonder stops speaking. There's a version of you that the algorithm loves, but it's not your best self. It's not the version of you that listens, that learns, that slows down to think. It's the other one, the one that snaps, the one that posts without reading, the one that gets jealous, that argues, that doom scrolls at 2 a.m. even though you swore you wouldn't. That's the version the algorithm rewards, because that version engages, that version reacts, that version makes money. And the more that version gets fed, the more it shows up, until eventually it starts to feel like you. Like maybe you are impatient, maybe you are angry, maybe everything really is this hopeless, but it's not. That's just the part of you the system knows how to reach, the shadow self, the one that's easily provoked, easily exhausted, easily led. And the more that side of you gets rewarded, the more your better instincts get buried, until you're not even sure who you are anymore. You're not addicted to the platform. You're addicted to the version of yourself it keeps pulling out of you. Over and over again. At first, it's just content. A post, a reel, a headline. You think, it's just one scroll. It doesn't affect me. But it does. Because what you feed your mind shapes your emotional world. And your emotional world shapes your decisions. And your decisions shape who you become. The things you click, the voices you follow, the tone you absorb every single day. They start to bend your perception. What feels normal? What feels urgent? What feels true? Not all at once. Slowly, like water wearing down stone, until the line between what you believe and what you've been shown disappears. And that's when the real shift happens. You stop choosing, and you start reflecting, not in a thoughtful way, in a mirror way. The algorithm holds up a reflection of what gets a reaction from you. And if you're not careful, that reflection becomes your identity. You stop asking, do I agree with this? And you start saying, this is who I am. But it isn't. It's just a feedback loop, one you can break if you choose to become conscious of what you consume. There's one addiction most people never notice, the addiction to being right. It doesn't look like the others. It doesn't leave a mess. It leaves a spotlight, one that feels warm, empowering, like finally being on the right side of something. The algorithm knows this. It knows what makes you feel clever, smarter than them, more informed, more awake. And it feeds you more of that, more content that confirms your views, more comments you'll agree with, more enemies to disagree with. Because being right feels good, and feeling good keeps you scrolling. But here's the cost. The longer you live in that loop, the harder it becomes to admit when you're wrong. Or worse, to even question yourself. You build your identity on a hill you're not allowed to climb down from. Because now you've performed it. You've posted it. You've become it. And the moment you try to step back, you feel lost. Not because your beliefs changed, but because the platform made certainty feel like safety. And once you taste that kind of safety, you'll defend it, even if it's empty, even if it's killing your ability to think. And that's how the system wins. Not by forcing you to believe anything, just by making you feel good for never changing your mind. Everything is screaming for your attention. Every post, every headline, every notification. And they all say the same thing. React. Now. The world doesn't reward patience anymore, or nuance, or restraint. It rewards speed, certainty, volume. And the more you respond, the more you're absorbed. But what if you didn't? What if you paused? What if you saw the bait and didn't bite? What if you let someone be wrong without needing to correct them? What if you let the noise pass through you without having to make it yours? That's not weakness, that's power. Because in a system that survives on your reaction, silence is resistance. Not silence as in ignorance, but silence as awareness. The kind of silence that chooses stillness over outrage. That doesn't rush to be seen because it already knows who it is. That's how you take your mind back, not by shouting louder, but by refusing to perform. The feed doesn't stop, but you can stop feeding it.